Welcome back. On Wednesday, the president of Ukraine addressed Congress and President Joe Biden, pleading for a no-fly zone that would shut down the skies over his country in an effort to end Russian airstrikes. This week, the Rundown caught up with Michigan U.S. Senator Gary Peters to get his thought on President Zelensky's remarks. Take a listen.
I think it's clear that everyone is just so impressed with how the Ukrainians are fighting and their ability to hold out against what is clearly superior forces from the Russians. But they're fighting in a very sophisticated, tactical way against these forces and need to continue to have support. It's clear they know how to effectively use the weapons that are being provided to them, and so it's incumbent on us to continue to provide those weapons. I think it's important for us to do, before we make a decision as to what weapon systems to provide and how to deliver and how quickly, it's important for us to rely on our military experts. We just had a very in-depth briefing from the military. They assess the risk factors of providing equipment versus how effective that equipment may be, and it's that risk-reward relationship that has to be very carefully analyzed, and I feel comfortable relying on the expert opinion of the Department of Defense in making decisions that could have significant ramifications. We have to be very careful about it. The Russians have sophisticated cyber capabilities, not just the government itself, but proxies and criminal organizations that work with the Russian government. Certainly we see that in terms of ransomware attacks that are pervasive on an ongoing basis. And we could see that escalating, so we have to be at the highest state of alert. I'm in regular communications with our cyber professionals with part of the Homeland Security Department, and certainly they are on high alert and working with partners around the world.
Well, still ahead here on the Capitol Rundown, we head to the other side of the aisle to get some Republican reaction to Zelensky's plea for more help from the U.S. Hear what Congressman Tim Walberg and John Molinar have to say right after the break. Michigan Congressman Tim Walberg was in D.C. as the president of Ukraine spoke to lawmakers and President Biden. He says he was amazed by the courage and leadership shown. Take a listen.
It was hard to believe that we were communicating with an individual who is a potentially dead man walking, who is willing to go on and with the threat of geo-tracking still speak to the, as he said, the most powerful country in the world and take that risk to try to get his message across. It was an experience that brought inspiration, I think, to those of us who look for leadership in a nasty world right now, where someone has to step up to the plate regardless of threat of life and say what needs to be said. Well, I don't think he's going to get the no-fly zone because, frankly, I think it's important for him to ask. But the reality of NATO countries with the concern about Russia at their back door and the potential of a crazy man like Putin to bring in nuclear armaments is too much to bear. The other issues of giving more lethal weapons, of beefing up the capabilities, this should have been done by our country and others weeks ago, even before Putin mounted his aggressive act in Ukraine. They were asking back then. We saw the mounting troops beginning to surround Ukraine. We should have been, at that point, not only warning Putin of sanctions, but putting sanctions on to give him an idea that, yes, we were serious about it. We should have been making sure that all the javelins, the Stinger missiles, any other implements were there for a stockpile ready for the use in a massive show of force from Ukraine right from the get-go. But his asking for that, he's going to continue getting. I think Congress is really behind the efforts to support the Ukrainian people. It's not just their military, but it's people themselves. And this president has stood up in the forefront, speaking for them. So I think he will be met by strong response there.
Republican Congressman John Molinar also spoke out after the speech. Here's what he had to say.
It was inspiring. It was someone who is leading with tremendous courage. President Zelensky made a strong case for why the American people and Congress should support their efforts to defend their homeland, their very existence. And very moving speech, very emotional. The video that he showed was incredible about Ukraine before the attack and the many wonderful things happening there versus now with Russia doing this horrific attack. I strongly support the idea that we should help supply the fighter aircraft. Poland has offered to MiG aircraft, something that we could backfill Poland's supply. I think that makes a lot of sense, allow Ukrainian pilots to help secure the skies over Ukraine. I think the no-fly zone is a problem, using American fighters shooting down Russian fighters. It could create a nuclear conflict. We don't want that. But I do want to support with defensive measures, the Stingers, the Javelins, everything we can do to help Ukraine defend itself. I think we're providing lethal assistance. I would have liked to have seen it happen earlier, just like these fighter aircraft that Poland has offered. I hope the Biden administration will take action and provide those and make sure that, they are able, because right now innocent civilians are being killed moment by moment, and we have the opportunity to support them in this effort, and we should. President Zelensky evoked memories of 9/11, of Pearl Harbor, of innocent people being attacked mercilessly. That's what's happening over Ukraine right now.
Well, coming up next here on The Rundown, we head back to D.C., where House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says there's still time to get more COVID funding passed. The latest details are next.